Razer just launched the Blackshark V3 Pro, and could they be a problem with this one? New crazy low wireless latency, the aux is back, active noise cancellation, simultaneous Bluetooth mixing, and they've supposedly made one of the best mics in gaming even better. So what's the catch? The Blackshark V3 Pro launches at a price of $249.99 US. That's up $50 from the V2 2023 refresh, but I feel like the expanded feature set here is more than worth the price hike. There is a ton to cook through here today. This time around, as Razer leans more into the console market, there are 3 distinct versions for PC, Xbox, and PlayStation. My copies arrived in this insane Razer display box that's nearly the size of a mid-tower PC. It is cool to see stuff like blue accent stitching on the white for the PlayStation side. The industrial design here remains largely unchanged. It was already pretty solid from a comfort standpoint, but there have been some not uncommon issues with this hinge right here being a point of failure on the last release. This piece has now been reinforced and they've added a 15-degree swivel here. This should help with fit and alleviate some of the strain on this piece long term. Still with the really plush headband here, they did have to add some weight this time around due to the ANC and the Bluetooth. I'm getting 365 grams on my scale, and attaching the mic adds another 15 grams, so we're up just about 40 grams from the V2 with the mic. The ear pads here are more plush this time around. They do just still pop right off. There's still the sport mesh with the faux leather inners. Interior measures 66 by 45 millimeters. They average about 20 millimeters deep because the drivers are angled. And pads aren't the only thing that pop off here, because for the first time we have aftermarket magnetic faceplate options. Even with the added weight, this is still a really comfortable design. No pain points, but I did notice that the pads here start to get a little toasty right around the hour mark. I'm relieved they were still able to use this type of material, since we've traditionally been told that fake leather was mandatory for getting a good seal with ANC. The ANC here works very well. You get 4 different levels of adjustment in Synapse and in ambient mode. I've switched up when it comes to ANC. I took for granted how nice and quiet the studio space was, and since I've been working out of our home again temporarily, it's a godsend to be able to hit that ANC button and lock in. You can toggle through on, ambient, and off on the headset. It does change the sound a bit. We'll talk about that in a sec. A really important note is that aux is back. People were big mad about this deletion, so they now include a USB-C to 3.5 millimeter jack that just goes right into the charge port. So that gives us 2.4 Bluetooth with low latency mode, USB, or 3.5 millimeter. These still have game to chat migs with separate drivers, and you can control the balance of that with this roller on the headset. This works on Xbox and PC, and on the PlayStation it does mic side tone. This smart switch button on single press toggles through up to 9 different EQ settings, all saved to the headset. A double tap here toggles between 2.4 wireless, Bluetooth, and for the first time ever, simultaneous Bluetooth mode. When you're in a single mode, volume is handled by the main volume knob. When you're in simultaneous, the volume knob handles the 2.4 connection, and the volume on your device, probably your phone, handles the Bluetooth side. It would have been cool to see this roller here used as a volume input for the secondary device, but no dice. There is 2 sets of chips and antennas in here though, so running in simultaneous mode does not affect the performance of the hyperspeed wireless. So simultaneous Bluetooth and 2.4 is no problem, but be aware that you cannot do simultaneous Bluetooth and aux cable. As soon as this detects an aux input, it disconnects the Bluetooth and you lose the ability to cycle between wireless modes. This is now using the same Gen 2 hyperspeed wireless that debuted a couple weeks back on the Death Adder V4 Pro, and with it comes a new dongle that looks very similar to the performance mouse dongles we've seen before. I understand the necessity, but I'm not a fan of this physically, because now I have another cable and another dongle on my desk instead of something that plugs in the back of my machine out of the way. This looks sloppy on a console. And the problem they solved with the weighted hemisphere dongle they just released on the Death Adder is back, meaning that thick cable they use causes the dongle to roll over on the desk. You're lucky if you have a desk that has magnetic cable management that can hold that steady. I can say there was zero issue running the wireless from my headset literally right next to my wireless mouse on my desk, which I was a little concerned about. Honestly, I'd never even considered wireless latency on a gaming headset before, because I've never experienced anything that felt deficient in that area on a modern wireless headset. They're claiming 10 milliseconds here. I have no objective way of testing that, nor can I tell you with any certainty that I've felt it improve my performance at all. What it does do is eat up battery, and the only reason I know this is because Synapse tells you so. You have the ability to disable this and run on standard game latency in Synapse if you want to preserve battery life. They rate this for 70 hours on PC and up to 48 hours on console, but there's so many different configurations where you can use the features on this, it's hard to call it. I'm going to run this for a few more weeks on my desk in a variety of different configurations, and I'll follow up with the short when I have some better data. We do have support for the Razer Audio app. This is a mobile app for iOS or Android. It allows you to make changes and then save those to your device. This is particularly nice when you're playing on console and you don't have Synapse in front of you. I did find it awkward that you cannot connect to the app unless you're in dedicated Bluetooth mode, not simultaneous mode. So you have to switch over, make your adjustments, save them, and then switch back over. Now, I was working off pre-embargo access, so this is something that might change when this headset goes live officially. Talking sound, they added a new driver plug on this release. release. I did measure these against the V2, and you can see that we do have different tuning. And even though the mid bass is a little more reserved this time around, this is classic case V-shaped tuning in the default mode. So big bass, big treble, baby mids. It's like they looked at the Harman curve and just went more. Earlier I said ANC affects the sound, and here's exactly what I mean. The high end remains basically untouched, but the low end gets smoothed way out, and this is what we want. The low end sounds sloppy with ANC off, much better with ANC on, though I do occasionally get some sibilance because these are really hot right here. Razer's headsets have traditionally been very bass forward, wild, unpredictable highs, and a pretty tight soundstage, and these are no different. I did use music to test what I was hearing versus what I was seeing, and it does hold up, but just be aware that you don't really buy a Razer headset for music listening. It's barely passable, so if that's an important factor for you, there are other gaming headsets out there like the Fractalscape or the HyperX Cloud that will do a better job in that regard. I gotta say the total volume output overhead was initially pretty disappointing. I could wear these at 100% everything on the PC with no issue. If you experience a similar case, you should go into the properties, go to advanced settings, audio enhancements, and change from device default to off. This will pull the THX mode off and unlock a lot more volume. For gaming, we have very solid channel matching here. That means left and right measure really close together, and that means really good imaging in game. But that bass forward presentation extends into gaming too. Even the dedicated esports preset for COD was too bassy. It's too one size fits all, like which COD, because audio engines are tweaked between games. It's not like I couldn't perform, but I didn't feel like I was seeing through walls like I've experienced with other headsets that have a little more finesse to their stock EQs, namely SteelSeries, who does a really good job in that regard. It didn't take a lot of tweaking to dial it in. It's mostly a cut to 125 and below, and then a little boost to 250 and 500 for me, and then everything else felt a lot more clear. They do have a new mode here that enables the roller to become a footstep scaler, and if that sounds gimmicky to you, you get a gold star. What's nice is they don't adjust the same range in every game. That's cool. So you may have some success with this in your specific game, but as a COD player, my footsteps are somewhere in this range, but it also adjusts 125, which seems to be base punch for my weapon. So if I boost for footsteps, every time I fire my gun, it's deafening versus the rest of the EQ band, and obviously that's not it. Now outside of that, their stock bass EQ works really well in immersive single player stuff, and there's plenty of detail to go around, even though the soundstage does feel pretty tight, but for specific competitive titles, expect to spend a little time customizing your EQ to make the most of these. My only other comment on sound is that when these are active and there's no immediate volume, I do get like a low volume hiss as like a background noise floor. In terms of range, I didn't have any issue getting up from the desk, going to hit the head without any breakups or connection issues, but they did drop out on me a couple times while I was adjusting EQ in Synapse. Both times they power cycled, then Synapse kind of freaked out and took a minute to reload it again. This was testing on a pre-release version, but still. The Blackshark V2 Pro 2023 is not even arguably one of the best mics in all of wireless gaming to this point, especially since they released a couple updates that relax the attack and the decay a little bit so it doesn't pinch your sentences. You're hearing this just straight default, no EQ modes, no tweaks in Synapse. This is a big boy capsule on here too at 9.9 millimeters, and the new one's even bigger at 12 millimeters, so you'd expect a lot. So this is the 12 millimeter capsule on the new V3 Pro, and I think first impression is that this is a pretty decent step down from the previous mic. Now, I will say the V2 Pro has a lot of swirly, squelchy transmission stuff going on, where the background here is much cleaner. It's just a low hiss, which is my room noise that you're hearing. I guess this does sound more real and not as like exaggerated, broadcasty as the V2. The signal itself sounds more clean, but the vocal here, at least in the default mode we're listening to, definitely sounds a lot more stuffy to me than the V2 2023. So moving to broadcast EQ now, and it's a better tone for sure. It still feels a little boxed into my ears. The levels on this mic are not nearly as high as the V2. Like the V2 mic has a lot more gain, and I have to reduce the Windows system volume like 15 points to make these sound equal. I checked whether the low latency wireless active caused a quality difference, or having side tone on or off, which is honestly very good side tone, or being strictly on the 2.4 gig versus the simultaneous mode caused a quality difference. No change. You can clean up the signal even further by going into Synapse and activating the background noise reduction, but it will sacrifice the vocal just a touch. Just to quickly hear how some of the other flagship systems stack up to the Blackshark V3, this is the Arctis Nova Pro wireless from SteelSeries. This is their latest hardware. This runs anywhere from like $290 to $380 depending on sales. You're hearing this in its best configuration for my voice, which is running through Sonar with broadcast low tone EQ active, and I feel like the Blackshark easily clears this. All right, the Odyssey Maxwell at $299 or $319. I'm running this with the background noise suppression algo off. When you run it on low, I feel like it gives you much better vocal levels, but it does have a tendency to chew up the vocal a little bit. So I'm trying to run this in the highest quality I possibly can. People really dislike the fact that I'm so consistently critical of this microphone. I don't understand. I wish I could hear what you guys hear in this. Maybe it just doesn't work well for my voice, but again, for me, this does not measure up to the Blackshark V3. The newest gen of the Astro A50 is easily the closest. This is priced at $299 or $399, depending on which version you get. And you're hearing this right now in its default EQ. I'm going to move over to the Blue Microphone Broadcast EQ. It's going to be a lot more bass forward and maybe a little too exaggerated. And I have to apologize for saying that the Fractal Scape mic punches as hard as this mic does. I was going by memory, which I will clearly never be doing ever again, because after listening to this mic back for testing for this video, it definitely doesn't. Now, versus the Blackshark V3, I feel like these are really close, but I think the A50 may take it. It also has a clear transmission sound, but the vocal also sounds more clear and less stuffy. So while I realize that the V3 is a technical improvement over the V2, I think it's going to come down to personal preference as to whether you appreciate the character and the tonality of the V2 versus the signal refinement and the stuffy nature of the V3. I much prefer the character of the V2, but let me know in the comments which one you like more. And for those of you wondering if you could put the V2 mic onto the V3 to get the best of both worlds, the answer is yeah, you can. Technically, I don't think you're supposed to be able to. They're not keyed exactly the same, and this doesn't feel like it seats in 100%, but it works. And I don't know. You tell me how you think this sounds. All right, so that was a ton of info because they packed a lot into this release. This feels kind of odd to say, but if we're looking at features and flexibility alone, I think Razer priced this fairly in the market. We got active noise cancellation and simultaneous Bluetooth. Maxwell offers neither of those, instead being like a glass cannon for sound quality alone. Arctis Nova 7 has simultaneous Bluetooth, but no ANC. And the Arctis Nova Pro wireless has both, but it comes in priced way higher, even though it does have that amazing battery system. Pros for me here are the design, the comfort, the ANC is a great add, simultaneous Bluetooth is a great add, with Game Chat Mix, that's every feature you really want in wireless. I like the lean into console, the onboard memory storage is great, the mobile apps support for making adjustments is solid, though I wish it worked in simultaneous mode. Based on the mic of the V2 Pro 2023, I had extremely high hopes for the mic here, and it felt like a letdown. I'll be anxious to see what people think of my own sound test and others once they get out there. The sound is pretty mid for me. I'm not understanding how all this pro player testing results in these bass monster EQs, and things, at least at this point, still feel a little buggy on the Synapse side. I could take or leave the new Hyperspeed wireless, and I'm not a fan of the dongle config. And long-term durability is always going to be a factor. We don't really have a way to test that in these reviews, but it looks like they've at least addressed the primary point of failure from the last release. Tuning still needs a little work, but I love the direction they went here on all fronts except for the mic. And kudos to Razer for really pushing the envelope feature-wise and not pricing this at $300. This has great potential, but my gut on this one says kick back and wait to see if they make some firmware tweaks that smooth this out into the complete package that this could be. And that's it for this time. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you all in the next one. Stay up.